Great. General, the first sort of query that I have, you have titled your short article is about networking and the way you see that UN mission is a place of for people from diverse places and areas, those who come together to work. So, given your experience as a force commander, what do you see as some of the challenges of such collaboration, networking, and cooperation among various groups?
I think the most challenging is for a leader is that everything goes a little slower because you have to make sure because of the different cultures and how you receive things. You have to make sure that they understand your message and what you want to achieve. So you have to do much more, control. So for me, for example, I had that, the commanders had to come back when they got the order that I issue for, half a year, a period of half a year. Then, they had to come and read back, what was their mission. So they, had the same understanding as I want them to have, so or to understand, what was the mission. So and that was important because when you have three different sector commanders, for example in Cyprus, with different background, different experience, you need to check that out, and of course that takes a little longer time. So everything in a way you issue, you have to make sure that people understand what you mean. So that's a
Mhm,
so
mhm,
things takes a little longer time when you issue things, but that's also why it's so important, because if something happens, you need to really, they really need to understand, because you don't have the time then to understand or to tell, if they don't solve the things in the right way, yeah. So that's little on that, but that's why it's so important for you as a leader. And I had a meeting with my sector commanders every week, additional to when I went out, to them also and joined patrols and so on, but to have a very close communication with them, call them once a week, see them once a week, and because then it's so much easier to clear up misunderstandings, or
mhm,
they have, if they feel that the atmosphere is good, so they can, raise up their hands in a way, like in a classroom, I didn't understand that, and coming from from Europe and maybe from the Nordic countries, we are very direct, and some of the cultures you work with, they are not that. So it takes time for them also to get used to the leadership and how I'm leading.
mhm, mhm. General, it's a very good, I would say, segue to my next question, or let's say topic to raise is that you mentioned about cultural differences, which is very obvious in missions. I do recollect from my mission area too. So, on that point, I would like to know your comments about being the first female commander on ground and the cultural differences that your under commands had. How did you negotiate all these things? Have you ever felt a little bit, overwhelming managing multi type of challenges on the ground?
No, I must say that being the first, that, as I put down in that policy brief, was that people were so curious and they wanted. So I had this, luck, so to speak, that people wanted to make contact because they wanted to see, for the first time, UN have got this female commander and so on. And that's probably why they picked me also, because of all my international experience. So, and I was, very much more experienced, or more experienced, like my counterparts, for those, even though I had the benefit, and I think that's also was a smart, by UN to select me, because the two opposite parties was led by generals from NATO countries. So in one way, I had that benefit that I knew, because I've been working in NATO myself, in the Netherlands. So I knew, that's what we learn in Norway when it comes to the policies, when it comes to all types of issues. So then having, a common ground with my counterparts, and I had another benefit, that they have been working with Norwegians both in Norfolk and in Brussels, that were very good friends of mine. So, and they have been asking these people, how I was and so on, and they have probably said the nice things, because it's kind of, but of course for those that hadn't and I met, they will always try to test you a little bit. And and I felt that sometimes, that they took up things that my the previous force commander in a way was maybe giving a little, even though it was, for me totally, I just said, we can agree to disagree, but and 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 you, when you were, I think they were a little surprised in a way that I was so firm, but also straightforward. I didn't kind of just go along. I said, this is, I'm sorry, this is the UN standpoint, so to speak. And I know that I got a lot of respect from those other generals. And then third general, that was the head of the security forces on the northern side in Cyprus. We have gone to the same Army War College, so we had a lot of common. And I think that was also why I, in a way, got a lot of progress. We were able to enter places in the green, or in the buffer zone in the Nicosia Center, that has not been looked at for as long as the conflict, more or less, because I was then dealing also on the religious track, and that was because Sweden was holding in that. And then, I had good relationship, but I also felt that some of the sites, try to also check out, how, they tried always, as I also put here, that everything you do becomes political, and they try in a way, was a more pro the south or the north, and they tried really, and but that's important, and I think also that when you are a force commander and you have also had a mission, the importance between her and me at that time was crucial, because we had so much in common, and we were like, um, we understood, and I was so happy that, so we could, I knew what I needed to do to support her. And then I was lucky that the peace envoy, the SASG, the special advisor to the Secretary General, was a Norwegian. He was previous, Minister of Defense and Foreign Minister, and I knew him actually before he entered the politics, because he was working at NUPI. I don't know if you are familiar with NUPI, a Norwegian foreign kind of uh, research institute.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and he was there leading the UN program. So he was
Oh.
very familiar with the UN system, and that was also why in that period we were in that very good process. So everybody was so positive.
Mhm.
And of course that helps when you And that's why also I went in all those doors, because why shouldn't I? And my experience from Afghanistan and other missions is that if you don't have, go into the society, the society will tell you much more in a way that you get through the UN channels. So talk
Mhm.
to people and get their opinion, and get a much more holistic view of the situation that helps you as a leader. That's at least my opinion.
Fantastic. General, my next query would be about UN Resolution 1325, which particularly focuses on women peacekeepers, and of course the conduct of the peacekeepers on ground, particularly within the host nation. So, can you tell us a little bit about if you have ever taken any initiatives with regards to 1325?
Oh yes, many. I mean, the biggest we did because we were because the leader group in UNFICIP was 50% women. So just by and I, in a way, together with the head of mission, we said, why don't we push gender on the top of the agenda when we have troop contributing nations, police contributing nations, political visits to our headquarters, and we did. And by just doing that, going from 4% female participation among the military went up to 8, just by changing, instead of the last point on the agenda, it was put on the top. For the UN police, it was from 10% to 25%. So it was definitely just to do that. Another thing I also did was, of course, I made sure that all our positions, and we had, it was 146, but it was only about 49, I think, that was permanent occupied. All these I made possible for both genders. That was vital that you can have. Same with the training facilities. So it's the environment was good. I also, in one of the sectors, they have put women on outside the perimeters, and I said that is not. Then we have to put things in the budget and put more abolition containers and more containers for them to live. They have to live within the perimeters. That. So a lot of these things. Also, when I also established this network that I also mentioned in the paper, and I entered a lot of other networks too. We had a network between women in the north and the south that was called the Women's Walk. That was, women from the whole society. Even, one from the north was becoming the Minister of Foreign Affairs in the leadership in the north. So it was, but it was, from all, and that also, just doing a lot of public speaking, where I always emphasized important. When I had the opportunity to go to New York, I made sure that the Norwegian delegation, because I, as a force commander, cannot kind of call up on the troop contributing nations. But of course, people can set up, so it's not me that are doing it. And then, I had the possibility to be in direct contact. I also used the senior national representative for them, to speak directly to them. That was another thing that I did, to because they write reports, to send back to host nation, not the host nation, but to the national or to the capitals. And then I also, with my sector commanders, I was sitting, every time there were some papers coming from New York, especially during in 14, 15. It was a lot of misconduct in at the African continent. So it was a lot of things that different missions were supposed to do, and I used that, to talk about these things. For example, that there's nobody that should have be able to go into Nicosia to stay overnight because they want to have sex or whatever, and I said, during the work days, they should not leave the camp. I mean, of course, if they have the family and so on, they are living someplace, then the commander in that sector need to sort that out. But it's these things, and touch wood, I didn't have any cases when it comes to sexual harassment and all this, and that was because I was really active. I Whenever we had those lectures, I took active part in it myself, and I think that's important. Also, when you meet the civil society, that you understand that this conflict has another impact on the women and children. Um, and my biggest kind of what I really tried to emphasize was, through the education, because both in the south and in the north are teaching not the right things, so that's where we try to work. So whatever the way, public speaking, as I did very often, especially to to the youth, was important. But as I said, that's why it's so important when, because 1325, that's it's so many things that you need, and for example, that I said, wherever you can, you should have, when you are going on patrol, it should have women and men in the patrol. And since it is a benign environment, it should not be any problem, even though some of the women were coming from, especially at the British sector, coming from support regiments, and are not, infantry or cavalry, whatever. It doesn't matter, because there, your weapon is actually your mouth, and how you are able to communicate. And that's why it's so important to reflect the society that we come from. And as a UN force, you are actually reflecting democracy. So that's why it's so important to have women there. So when we are in countries, and when you go into the north, you can then go on the gender gap list um, in Turkey, and even in Cyprus, and see they are far down. So that is important. And so I really I think I did a lot, because because we were so had this agreement on the top, and as long as it's kind of up anchored, it's the best thing, because else it's hard. And I know that from experience from the Norwegian. I had when NATO had a women's conference in Oslo in 2005. The chief of defense didn't mention, women once during his introduction speech. He only talked about new equipment, technical, and so forth. So that was kind of, if it's not anchored, it's very difficult to get to do anything. And also when it comes to, entry points and so on, even though I mean, uh, Cyprus is secular, so it was not. It was much more, challenge in the Middle East, because that's, even they are not that far when it comes to Cyprus in a way. But no, we did. I would say that we did quite a lot. But you have to be active, and and sometimes I feel that being a woman, you need to actually work much more. Well, you could say stop, because but I made the choice that for me, the military task was not that challenge for me. That was probably because I had a good relationship in the north and in the south. So that's why I could, because with my experience and my previous, area of expertise, it's CIMIC, civil military and civilian cooperation coordination. So I know the importance of really dealing with the civil society, and you have to, in Cyprus also, I went out because um, I worked at PO, Peace Research Institute Oslo, when I returned from or when I retired from the military. They had a center in Cyprus, so I used them a lot. And then, they can also tell me which kind of segment, or who, which, segment, when the last peace plan was voted for, and that was in 2004, the so-called Annan plan. And that was mainly, women between 25, 55. And of course, then I see, well, that is a segment that I should, when it comes to 1325, to engage. So I did that, for example. Another thing I did when it comes to sexual exploitation and abuse was to check which of the 15 different nationalities that I got here, where is prostitution legal? I don't think a man would have done that, a male force commander. But it was so much focus, and I thought, so then a lot of the countries this was legalized. So then I knew, for those national contingent commanders, I need to do a more thorough kind of speech with them, a talk to put the thing straight. So and that's what I say, that I feel that as a woman you do so much more, also because you see it sometimes, for me, it seems like we look much wider, um, and see the consequences, and especially because very often the victim is women, when it comes to sexual exploitation and abuse. But yeah, so that was just a little of the 1325.
Thank you. Thank you so much. No, it's actually very inspiring because this is one of the areas back in 2001 and 2 I did see in Western Sahara very much unaddressed, and somehow in a very male-oriented mission, it doesn't get any attention. General, I will end today's discussion, but before I go, I would like to request you to share with us one memory that you still sometimes reflect upon during your time in UNFICIP. So something that you cherish quite a bit as a force commander, and you would like to like us to share with the bigger audience.
um, I think one of the things that I kind of value the most is that I think that I was able to bring the military and the civilian staff closer. And I was very active at that time. We had a program called Inside the Blue. And I remember I kind of dragged out all the military, but even I had to drag out the civilians. And that it was, to get a better working environment. And I also know that I took all these talks, that because of those civilians that are working close to you, you have to have this kind of leadership dialogue. And I follow up all those, and I feel that the working atmosphere was so good. Um, and of course, you always have in a mission, there's always people that don't have the same chemistry, or but I think that I when I look back, I really value, and that I put so much effort into it, because that pay off for you as a leader, and also the leader team, and for me, it's like, for me, it's not the importance of score the goal. It's actually that I can pass a ball to another that scores. And I think that to have that, that you are a team, the team feeling, that is the most important, because yes, you have to take the final decision when it comes to military issues, but as long as you know that you have the staff around you, and I think that's and you have to, that's why they wanted me to stay longer, but to be enthusiastic for 2 years and so active, that's what I could do. And I said, well, you deserve to have enthusiastic and active, commander, and 2 years, I can make that, but longer, then things will go into more routine. So then I'm looking back and think, that I think I was right on that, and I'm very happy for that. So yeah, it's
It's amazing when I listen to you. General, thank you so much for your time. What I'll do is now I will do the transcription, I think within a day or two, and send you across.
yeah.
And then once you are okay, I will just organize it as a chapter. So now it will be a little longer. And before it goes to press, you will have another scope to review it, and hopefully that should be excellent. So thank you so much, and I apologize for being late because I was walking on on the street of Edinburgh and just couldn't find out a quiet place to talk to you.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, I'm especially nearly now going out because I have
oh, thank you so much. Thank you,
but
thank you,
there is this academic 15 minutes,
thank you so much.
so,
Thank you, thank you,
and it was 14, so you were lucky. But send my
thank
best
you so much.
to Omar when you see him.
So much. Yeah, 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 yeah. We live in the same city, General,
Yeah,
as you know. Yeah, so I'll be back on 30th, back to Winnipeg. So I'll meet him and talk to him. So thank you once again, General, for your time. Really appreciate. Bye
enjoy
bye.
your time.
Thank you. Bye bye. Bye.
Bye bye.